Hi, Michael Kamas here from Keycode Media and NAB New York 2025. Keycode Media has a booth here, and because we have a booth, we're interviewing some of the movers and shakers in our industry and the folks that we deal with on a professional basis day in and day out. So today, we're joined by Ray Thompson of Avid Technologies. Ray, thank you so much for joining us today.
Michael, thank you, and thank you for having us, and thanks to Keycode. I run Partners and Alliances, just so everybody knows, so I work with partners to onboard onto Avid platforms. On the video side of the house, I don't do audio, so I do Media Composer, Nexus, and Media Central, and all the associated products, and now Content Core.
Good, because I have a lot of questions on about 3/4 of those. So why don't we start with a question that you're going to get asked a few thousand times,
yes.
Right? What is Avid showing at NAB New York 2025?
Absolutely, so I'll start with Content Core. Big announcement made at IBC. So what is Content Core is what everybody's asking. So Content Core is a data management platform. It's not a MAM, it's not a PAM, although it is those things. It isn't just those things, is what I want to point out. So it does all that, of course, but really what it is a way for you to basically ingest, manage, track, and ultimately monetize your content and track it from basically the minute it's created all the way through to the minute it's consumed. And so it's using a whole variety of different technologies. The front of it will look very much like Media Central does today, so the user interface should look very familiar, but everything underneath it is all SaaS, right? This is our a SaaS offering from the ground up, which is very exciting for Avid. This is a seminal moment in the company in the sense that this is really our first true SaaS offering. What's also really cool is this is completely new for Avid, right? Avid's had a lot of products over the years. A lot of them have been iterations, right? You think about Nexus, for example.
Sure.
Nexus is like our 3rd or 4th generation of storage. Media Composer, of course, has been around forever. So this is a brand new product, and that's exciting to see. A lot of this came from a lot of the work that's been done talking to clients about what are their biggest challenges. And of course, our industry continues to go through a massive change, right? It feels like, we used to talk about the shift to digital was like, oh wow, this is a pretty big change. Well, that looks like nothing nowadays compared to everything that's going on now. So really Content Core is designed to help manage and deliver on a lot of the challenges that people are facing today. So you're using all kinds of technologies like agentic AI to help do codeless talking to all these different various applications that everybody's using to basically talk to each other without having to have people create APIs and work through those APIs, right? So, so it's pretty exciting. It's basically a content data management platform. It gives you access to all your media through a single pane of glass. And it allows you to basically manage not just Avid assets, right? Because that's the other key point to Content Core. It allows you to manage all of your assets, regardless of where they live. And that's really the other big differentiator for Content Core. If you think about Avid, right? Everybody always looks at Avid as like a sort of a semi-closed environment, right? That's sort of something we've always trying to work to get away from, of course, but just that's how people think of it, right? It's an environment, right? And Content Core takes all of that and sort of elevates that. The other big thing to know is that production management plays a big role here. Everybody who has production management, if they upgrade to the latest and greatest, of course, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but they can benefit from everything that Content Core can provide in terms of using that single pane of glass to manage all those assets from basically cradle to grave.
One thing I did want to kind of elaborate on a little bit is Avid has had different components of the production and post-production process, right? You would work at the facility and data would be ingested, and then you'd have someone edit, but then you'd always go to someone else for distribution, you'd always go to someone else for monetization, and then someone else for metrics.
Yeah.
So if I understand correctly, you're taking the kind of paradigm of the Avid MAMs or PAMs of old and saying, what else can we manage and then provide metrics on in the production and post-production process?
Yeah, it's metrics that can ultimately then be sort of fed out through other applications, right? So if you have other tool sets in your organization, say BI or other tools that are managing the business, this will allow you to track that information at a level that's never been possible before. And so that's a huge differentiator, right? It's the data components of the asset from the minute it arrives to the minute it basically gets consumed and everything that happens to it in between. And all the metadata that goes with it will follow it through its life cycle. So that's really the sort of bedrock of what Content Core affords. And it's all managed, again, through that sort of one UI. And that UI is a very familiar UI that everybody who's ever used Media Central Cloud UX will be familiar with.
Well, that's obviously a massive undertaking. So, like any good rollout, this is going to come in phases. So if I understand it, the first rev is going to be kind of Q1 next year,
correct,
right? And what will that entail?
Yeah, so V1 will have Wolf Tech
recent acquisition.
Recent acquisition, right? So you'll have all the WolfTech tool sets. You'll have, iNews. You'll have production management access. You'll have all the access to, your asset management as well, right? Your traditional asset management. But you'll also have what I talked about before, which is the ability to see assets that are non-Avid assets, right? And then be able to track those. And so those are all part of what will be V1. And then subsequent to that, you'll start to see more and more capabilities that will allow for things like publishing and then ultimately monetizing those assets off of the same platform. There will be APIs. The APIs will allow for, again, multiple other companies to take part in the ecosystem. And like I said, there's examples of agentic AI that we've already shown at IBC. In the example we showed at IBC, it was basically talking to Cutting Room and getting assets from Cutting Room into production management and ultimately exposed in Content Core. And so it's pretty exciting, really, to see. And all that will be in V1. So.
And if you haven't seen Cutting Room, you should check it out. It's a web-based video editor, and a lot of companies are utilizing it because it's just very simple to use, and the API is fantastic. But it does bring up a good point, is that Cutting Room runs in the cloud.
Yes.
You mentioned that Content Core was going to be your first real SaaS offering.
Yep.
We had an unfortunate outage with AWS this week. So obviously that worries some people. So how would Content Core be able to kind of mitigate that or work around that?
Yeah, so geographically dispersed deployment, right, as sort of the core component of how the SaaS offering is going to be offered, will give you the ability to have it available in multiple different regions and geographies. So that's really hopefully protecting you from any type of outage, right? So if one area goes down, you're all set. You're basically deployed in another region.
And is Content Core doing that by default, or is that something you do in the pre-planning phases to say, look, I want to have a redundancy, a different region with a mirror of that data in case something like this happens?
I think it's actually both, right? So you can do it by default, right, which people can elect to do. I don't know all the pricing yet, so it still hasn't come out yet, so I don't know how.
I want to talk to you about zeros and ones, not dollars and cents.
but just, but that does have an impact, right?
Sure.
Of course, of how people consider it. So, but yeah, it's basically, it can be by default, but you can also plan it and more or less manage how you want to roll it out. So.
I also heard about another feature that you announced at IBC for Nexus called Nexus Cache, right? Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so Nexus Cache just came out, by the way. The version of Nexus, I think, hits today that supports Nexus Cache. We talked about it at IBC as a tech preview, and it is now reality out there in the field. And basically, long story short, it's caching everything locally to the client. So regardless of where you are, you can cache the project that you're working on to that client, and it basically behaves as if you're sitting in the building. So regardless of where you are, editing-wise, all those assets that are in that project, it intelligently goes out, grabs everything you need in order to work on that edit in that project, and then you're good to go, right? It's basically behaving as if you were connected directly, sitting in the building to a Nexus system, and that's really what that affords. It's sort of an evolution, if you will, of what was once known as Nexus Edge, but it works differently. It's more intelligent, and again, it's all cached locally. So it's very, very powerful, and we've done a ton of POCs with those, and the feedback's just been overwhelmingly positive.
So is the process, you load up a Media Composer project while you're connected to the Nexus, it then reads what media, what sequences, what other metadata is in your project, it then pulls that media local to the machine and then is pinning it, as some companies call it.
Exactly.
And then you can use that remotely. Then when you come back, there is a, not a relink process, but a recognizing that, hey, I don't need to use the cached versions anymore, and it just reconnects.
Correct. Yep, that's exactly what it does. And I would say too that in terms of like how it behaves, that cache stays there, right? It doesn't like when you're done with the project and you close it, it's not like that goes away, right? Because you may go into another project, right, and it'll cache that, and then if you need to go back to the project you originally cached, that all sits there still. So.
And is that content encrypted locally?
Yep.
Excellent, because that's what a lot of folks ask for is, okay, we're going to trust you to edit remotely, but if you lose your laptop, that media can't get into the wrong hands. So,
exactly.
Outstanding.
Yeah, it's it's very, very efficient. Yeah, the feedback on it's been great.
So for years, we've communicated because you've been working on the partnership and alliances portion of Avid.
Yes.
And I think you were giving me a number of how many partners have now signed up for the SDK to build panels for
we're
Avid?
getting closer to 300 now. We're about 260, 270 partner panels. I get about 3 to 10 requests a week. It's a mix of customers and partners. Most of them are partners, though. When I say partners, I mean companies that build tool sets that ultimately want to run inside of Media Composer. And what Panel SDK, which came out 2 years ago at IBC, allows for is an HTML5 window, JavaScript under the hood, to basically allow an application to sit right inside of the editor. You can have multiple panels up at the same time, and it's been fun to see what people have been doing with it. And today, you have about 30 or so that are out there live in the wild being used in real productions. And it's everything from backup and recovery to ingest, whether that be ingest to a local setup or the cloud or both. It's AI-generated editing with companies like Quickture. We have video dubbing that is also AI-driven.
Flawless AI through Keycode Media, Flawless.
Flawless, super cool. One of the cooler applications out there today. We have Acclaim Audio, which is AI-generated audio that does audio normalization and fixes all the mistakes that might happen, right, in a production.
Oh, no, those are creative choices.
Exactly, creative choices. So yeah, it's been really, really fun. I mean, and the list goes on and on. There's so many that are behind it. Our intention is to have a marketplace next year for all the panels. And even if it's not necessarily being sold in the marketplace, it'll be in the directory. So you can learn about what's possible, you can get your information, you can even download the necessary panel itself, and then sign up for whatever service it is you're interested in. And I'm really excited about it because although I would have loved to, of course, had the marketplace up already, what's exciting about when it does launch is we should have, well over 50, 60 partners, at the launch, ready to go, maybe more, right? And then customers use this too, right? Customers use this to fill workflow gaps. And that's also been super fun to watch what customers are doing with it. Everybody's been asking for this, honestly, for so long. And again, I know we kind of get somewhat of a bad rap that we're not open, but we are open, actually. Media Central really opened things up just for the company. Those are all APIs publicly available, right? And lots of great stuff happens there, lots of great third-party apps that run in Media Central. And now in Media Composer, I feel like we're eclipsing what's possible in Media Central in terms of third parties running on Media Composer. I mean, the number just keeps growing. It's really, really exciting. And yeah, I love it. This has really been a fun project to work on. And everybody's been so cool. So it's a lot of fun.
I think the last question I have is for folks who are interested in getting involved in getting the SDK and being able to build a panel inside Media Composer. What is that process? Are they hitting you up on LinkedIn, or what is kind of the process for doing this?
So that's a good question. So there is an area on avid.com where you can basically fill in a simple form, and it all ultimately comes to me. And what we didn't want to just like make it public, not in the sense that like you could log on and whatever, do a click through and then download the kit, because we wanted to talk to everybody. We wanted to learn what people wanted to do with the panel and then basically prioritize any features that they wanted after they'd used it so that we could basically deliver those first, right, based on what third parties and customers were asking for. And that's why I think we've met literally everybody. There might have been 2 people that we didn't meet because they were in pretty far regions and they didn't speak English or whatever. And so I would say out of all the ones that have signed up, we've talked to every single one of them just about. And like I said, super cool, the enthusiasm that you get when people start hearing about what's possible with Panel SDK, it just comes through the Zoom, and then people just get really into it. And so we're building a really nice community around Media Composer, and over time we really want to improve how that community can also interact with each other, to learn from each other. But we've learned a ton. We've learned a ton just by talking to everybody. And like I said, everything that comes out in the panel, I would say after about the 4th or 5th version of it, and we're on version 13, 14 will come out in, I think, November, December. So it usually comes out about a week or so after the release of Media Composer comes out. And all those features are really prioritized by the feedback that we're getting from the customers. And I feel like if you do it that way and you talk to everybody directly, you end up making that connection that you wouldn't have made had they just downloaded it off the website. So that's really the reason. Now maybe at some point we'll just put it on the website and people can download it. Probably be a little easier, honestly, but I don't
know, the tech support on deciphering Markdown could be difficult. So unless maybe they shouldn't reach out to you on LinkedIn. Maybe going to avid.com is the best way to do this.
It is. But yeah, it's been super, super fun, and that's the best way to do it. So go to avid.com and you'll find an area for basically signing up for a Panel SDK. I'd love to talk to you if I haven't talked to you already. Yeah, keep it coming.
Outstanding. Ray, thank you for your time. Thank you everyone else for logging in today. We'll have more streams today and tomorrow at the Keycode Media booth at NAB New York 2025. I do want to remind you that if you are looking to upgrade your production, post-production, or audiovisual environment, reach out to us. We've got advantageous pricing and we offer free consulting. So please check us out at keycodemedia.com where we do more interviews like this. Thanks, Ray.
Michael, thanks so much. Great to see you.